Morgan Rogers just became the most expensive British footballer in history, £117 million, and Arsenal, the reigning Premier League champions, watched it happen from the sidelines. How does that even happen to a team that just won the title? Many think Chelsea simply threw more money at the problem. They didn't. A single phone call from Xabi Alonso did more damage to Arsenal's transfer window than any bank account ever could. Mikel Arteta lost his top target because Chelsea was willing to completely blow Arsenal's valuation out of the water. May 19, 2026. Arsenal clinches the Premier League title for the first time in 22 years. 22 years of hurt, gone. Arteta finally gets his moment. The club is flying. And less than 2 months later, their #1 summer signing walks straight past them into a Chelsea shirt instead. That's not bad luck. That's a decision. Rodgers had options. He picked the other one. So why would a rising English international turn down the champions of England? Arsenal had already done the hard part. They'd agreed personal terms with Rodgers. He wanted to go. Sources close to the deal made clear he was Arteta's priority target for the entire summer. But Arsenal drew a line at £80 million. Not a penny more. Aston Villa wanted closer to Chelsea's eventual figure, and Arsenal simply refused to move. Many claim Arsenal couldn't afford him. Wrong. They chose not to pay it. There's a difference, and it matters. This wasn't a financial collapse, it was a valuation standoff, and Arsenal blinked first by standing still. Meanwhile, a fresh British transfer record had just been set weeks earlier, when Elliot Anderson moved to Manchester City for £116 million. That number was still fresh in everyone's mind, and it meant the market had already shifted under Arsenal's feet before they'd even made their final offer. So Arsenal held their ground on price. Fair enough, that's smart business. But holding your ground means someone else can move. And someone else did. If Arsenal's discipline on transfer fees is starting to sound familiar, hit subscribe to catch every twist the moment these deals break. Not weeks later when everyone's already moved on. Friday, July 17th, Xabi Alonso picks up the phone and calls Morgan Rogers directly. Not an agent, not a director of football, the manager himself. And what he says on that call changes the entire trajectory of this transfer. Alonso doesn't talk numbers. He talks football. He lays out a role for Rogers as a left-sided number 10, someone who can drift inside, find pockets of space, dictate play through the middle when the moment calls for it. He tells Rogers he's the real deal. Not a squad piece. Not a project. The real deal. Compare that to what Arsenal were planning to offer. Arteta's system at Arsenal demands discipline out wide, staying pinned to the touchline, stretching the pitch on cue, structured, effective, proven, but rigid. And Rogers, fresh off winning Europa League Player of the Season for Aston Villa, wasn't looking for rigid. He was looking for freedom. One manager offers you a box. The other offers you a canvas. Which one would you pick if you were 23 years old and just tasted your first trophy? There's a human piece to this too. Cole Palmer, Rodgers' close friend from their days together in the Manchester City Academy. While Alonso was working the tactical angle, Palmer was working the phone constantly, texting, calling, pushing Rodgers to make the jump to Stamford Bridge. These two grew up together in the same youth setup, chasing the same dream. And now Palmer wanted his friend beside him, in the same shirt, on the same pitch. There is even a shared piece of history between them. That ice-cold goal celebration everyone's seen from Premier League highlights? Rodgers actually brought it over from the NBA to English football. Now imagine the pull of doing that celebration in Chelsea blue, side by side with the guy who's been your mate since you were kids, chasing a first-team debut. Alonso sold Rodgers on football. Palmer sold him on family. Arsenal had neither conversation. That's the gap, not the wallet, the relationship. If that detail changed how you see this deal, hit like so the algorithm shows this story to more people. Saturday, July 18th. 24 hours after that phone call, Chelsea reaches a verbal agreement with Aston Villa. £117 million. Just one day. Arsenal spent weeks negotiating personal terms, building a relationship, doing the groundwork. Chelsea needed one call and one weekend to undo all of it. Reports since have called it a key 48 hours, and that phrase fits perfectly. Alonso made the call Friday. The fee was agreed Saturday. By the time Arsenal realized what was happening, the deal was already moving too fast to stop. This is what hijacking actually looks like in modern football. It's not slow, it's not messy, it's surgical, and it's brutal if you're on the wrong end of it. £117 million makes Morgan Rogers the most expensive British player in the history of the sport. Not the most expensive Premier League transfer overall, that record still belongs to Alexander Isak, who moved to Liverpool for £125 million back in 2025. But among British players specifically, nobody has ever cost more than Rogers does right now. This fee arrived barely weeks after Elliot Anderson's £116 million move to Manchester City. Two British record fees shattered within the same month. The market for homegrown English talent has genuinely lost its mind, and Chelsea just proved they're willing to pay whatever it takes to win a phone call. Rogers moved to Aston Villa in 2024 for roughly £8 million from Middlesbrough. $8 million, that's it. Middlesbrough had a sell-on clause built into that original deal, and thanks to Chelsea's record fee, they've now collected an additional windfall worth close to £20 million just from that clause alone. A club outside the Premier League picked up £20 million because they were smart enough to insert one clause into a transfer contract 2 years ago. That's not luck, that's foresight, and it's proof of exactly how much value Rogers created in such a short window at Villa Park. At Villa, he delivered 21 Premier League goals, 17 Premier League assists, 85 Premier League appearances, 22 caps for England, a Europa League title, scored in the final against SC Freiburg, and the tournament's Player of the Season award to go with it. He even started England's World Cup semi-final defeat against Argentina earlier this month. This isn't a gamble Chelsea took. This is a player who has already proven on the biggest stages available to him that he belongs there. Arsenal saw all of this too. They wanted him for exactly these reasons. They just weren't willing to pay £117 million to get it. Chelsea were. And then came the line that turned this whole transfer from a business story into a genuine rivalry story. Minutes after signing his contract on July 21st, in his first official Chelsea interview, Rogers looked into the camera and called Chelsea the biggest club in London. Arsenal had won the Premier League 2 months earlier. 22 years of waiting, finally over, and Rogers just walked past that entire achievement like it never happened. Arsenal fans felt snubbed by the transfer decision, and the words that came after insulted them further. That's a different kind of pain entirely. Was that comment necessary? Probably not. Was it deliberate? Almost certainly. Rogers signed a 6-year deal with an option for an additional year running all the way to 2033. That's not a short-term statement piece. That's a player planting a flag and telling you exactly which side of London he now belongs to, whether you like it or not. So what does this actually mean going forward? Arsenal now has to explain to their own fan base how a newly crowned champion lost its top summer target to a single weekend of phone calls and friendship. Alonso, barely 3 weeks into his official tenure that began July 1st, has already delivered his first marquee signing and a psychological blow to a London rival in the same move. That's an enormous statement for a manager this early into a job. Chelsea bought a footballer, a narrative, a friendship reunion, and a very public dig at their nearest London rivals, all wrapped into one transfer. Arsenal will recover. They always do. But this one's going to sting for a while. And every time Rogers scores in blue this season, that biggest club in London line is going to resurface right alongside it. If any of this actually got you fired up or made you rethink what really decides these transfers, like and subscribe, because London rivalries like this one are only getting started.